Hey everybody, this is Ryan McClanahan with historythroughcards.com. I hope you're all doing very well today. In this video, I want to share with you the life and career of Joe Schmidt. And the more that I read about Joe Schmidt, the more I liked. I mean, he's got an amazing career, which is why I want to share it with you guys today. But he also was really good to his fans as well, and he signed quite a bit during his lifetime, so you shouldn't have any problem trying to find a Joe Schmidt autograph of anything out there. His 1956 Topps is his rookie, and that is actually the first football set from Topps, so that is kind of an important set. My favorite set from the 1960s, however, is the 1963, and it is a challenge. And maybe someday I actually will complete the set. In fact, the one thing I think you might want to keep in mind is that the edge wear down to the bottom especially, but the centering on these cards can be quite tricky. But other than that, like, this is a really nice card, and I'm kind of biased because it is my favorite football set from the 60s, but this one is really nice, I think, and Joe Schmidt has a lot of really nice cards out there. Another card you might like is his rookie, which is a 1956 Topps. That is Topps' first foray into football, so that is kind of an important set for collectors and Topps, in fact. But today I wanted to discuss Joe Schmidt's career with you guys, and I think you're going to find it really interesting. So here we go. This is from the Detroit Free Press, September 15th, 2024. Joe Schmidt was more than Mr. Detroit Lion. There should be a statue of him at Ford Field by Bill Dow. With the passing of former Detroit Lions middle linebacker Joe Schmidt, the longtime captain who helped lead the Lions to world championships in 1953 and 1957, then served as the team's head coach for 6 seasons, we have lost a legendary figure whose likeness could have been etched into the Mount Rushmore of Detroit sports icons. The media panel once named the Pro Football Hall of Famer Mr. Detroit Lion, and frankly, even to this day, the moniker still fits. I was very fortunate to have known Schmidt for 25 years. On numerous occasions, I interviewed him in person or over the phone for freelance articles I wrote for the Free Press, and we stayed in touch over the years. On a few occasions, I broke bread with him. I would sometimes call him on his January 18th birthday if I remembered. The conversation always ended with, "Thanks for calling, pal." I found him to be kind, humble, soft-spoken, and proud of his time playing during the glory years of Lions football in the 1950s, when he redefined the middle linebacker position as the defensive quarterback. He was a gentleman who truly had class. Schmidt also had a wonderful sense of humor. Like actor John Belushi, who gave out nicknames to his fraternity brothers in the comedy Animal House, it was Schmidt who sometimes provided monikers to many of his teammates. Carl Brudschnecker was Badger, John Gordy was the Bear, Dan LaRose was Fred Flintstone, and so on. In his best-selling book, Paper Lion, participatory journalist George Plimpton recounted trying out as the Lions quarterback at the 1963 training camp at Cranbrook School, and wrote about Schmidt and the escapades of the colorful Lions players. Schmidt later played himself as the Lions head coach in the 1968 movie Paper Lion. When he was the head coach, he was once approached by 2 of his star players, Lem Barney and Mel Farr, whose close friend, Motown singer Marvin Gaye, had asked if he could try out for the Lions. Of course, nearly every head football coach would have said, hell no, but Schmidt kindly gave the famous vocalist a one-day tryout, after which he politely told Gay that it would be best to stick to singing. In 2007, after interviewing Joe for my freelance press article on the 50th anniversary of the Lions' last World Championship, he agreed to meet me at Tiger Stadium with Free Press photographer Mandy Wright, who took photos of him on the field. It was a beautiful sunny September morning at the ballpark where Schmidt had starred as a player from 1953 until he retired after the 1965 season. I had brought a game-used Lions football, and Mandy brought a stepladder which she stood on and photographed Schmidt as he looked up with a beautiful smile on his face holding the ball. He reminisced about the stadium and fondly pointed out front row seats where some season ticket holders gave out hot dogs to some players. He also sadly pointed to the spot where, during his tenure as head coach, receiver Chuck Hughes had died of a heart attack during the closing minutes of a 1971 game. A good player and a great guy, he said. As we were about to leave the ballpark, Schmidt asked the employee from the city if we could go inside the home locker room. The man told us that since the Tigers had abandoned the stadium, there was no longer electricity, but he had a key to open up and a flashlight. When we walked in, you couldn't see your hands, but as soon as the man pointed his flickering flashlight beam to the floor, Joe Schmidt took off in a beeline to his corner locker. I asked him how he found it so quickly. He said, "Hell, I played here for 13 years. It was easy." Wright then asked Schmidt to stand in front of the locker where, for a millisecond, her camera flashlit him as he stood smiling. When we were done, I walked 2 blocks up Michigan Avenue with him for a hamburger at Nemo's, one of his favorite spots. It was another wonderful opportunity to hear colorful stories about quarterback Bobby Lane, head coach Buddy Parker, who by the way should be in the Hall of Fame, and that's another story, running back Doak Walker, and those amazing championship years. At one point I asked him if he still had the game ball that was awarded to him after the Lions won their last World Championship in 1957. Schmidt said that he gave the ball to the team center that year, Frank Gatsky, who had just played in his last NFL game. He sheepishly then remarked that years later he asked Gatsky if he still had the ball, which arguably could be called the holy grail of Lions football. With a hearty laugh, he said, "Frank told me that his dog got a hold of it and ate it." On August 28th of this year, I toured the new Detroit Lions Gridiron Heroes exhibit at the Detroit Historical Museum, where numerous game-used Lions items, photos, trophies, and other memorabilia are displayed, including a bust of Schmidt, his cleats, and a game ball awarded to him. There's even a color film of highlights from the 1953 NFL Championship game, and a listening station that includes the 1963 Joe Schmidt Trio record with the songs "Cry Out Freedom" and "A Lonesome One," featuring vocals from Schmidt and teammates Dick LeBeau and Bruce Marr. Schmidt had once told me with a chuckle that he had a big box of the records in his basement. With my phone, I took photos and videos of the exhibit and immediately called Schmidt at his Florida residence to tell him about the exhibit. His wife Marilyn handed the phone to their daughter Carrie, who said that her dad was in the hospital. I then emailed her the photos and videos and asked if she would share them with her father. The next day, she responded by an email that said that he really enjoyed seeing everything, says thank you, and they brought back some wonderful memories. On the day he died, she emailed me to say one of the last things my dad saw were the photos and videos and that it made him smile. He was a special guy, and I'm beyond grateful that he was my dad. At Comerica Park, the Tigers have statues of former players Ty Cobb, Charlie Gehringer, Hank Greenberg, Willie Horton, Al Kaline, and Hal Newhouser. At Little Caesars Arena, the Red Wings display statues of former players Alex Delvecchio, Gordie Howe, and Ted Lindsay. And just last year, the Lions unveiled a beautiful statue of Barry Sanders at Ford Field. In a statement released and posted on the Lions website this week, Lions Chair Emeritus Martha Ford wrote in part, "Joe Schmidt had the heart of a lion, which made it appropriate that he was also the heart of our team. Joe was a key part of our championship seasons and continued to be an important part of our team until his passing. I think a lot of people would love to see a statue of Joe Schmidt installed at Ford Field. After all, he is Mr. Detroit Lion." This is from the Detroit Free Press, September 13th, 2024. Hall of Fame linebacker led Lions to their last championship in '57 by Dave Burklett. Joe Schmidt, the Hall of Fame linebacker who led the Detroit Lions to their last championship in 1957, died Wednesday, his family told the Free Press. On Thursday, he was 92 years old. Schmidt spent 2 decades with the Lions as a player and coach, and is one of the most revered figures in franchise history. He was an 8-time first-team All-Pro, a member of the NFL's 100th anniversary team, and he helped revolutionize defense by ushering in the modern middle linebacker position. He was like a coach on the field, Schmidt's teammate Roger Zakoff told the Free Press in June 2020. "I can recall instances where he would come up and say, 'Hey, cheat over there, one man to your left,' because something else was going on and we needed to make an adjustment." And the reality was, he was like Bobby Lane made adjustments without the coaches knowing it. Of the 36 players on the Lions' 1957 championship roster, 3 men remain living: Gene Cronin, starting defensive end, Jerry Reichow, starting receiver, and Bob Long, starting linebacker. A 7th-round pick out of Pittsburgh in 1953, Schmidt helped the Lions win a championship as a rookie after he replaced Laverne Torkelson as a starter early in the season. The Lions beat the Cleveland Browns 17-16 that December to win their 3rd ever title and 2nd in a row. Schmidt, who forced quarterback Otto Graham to fumble to set up the Lions' first touchdown in the championship game, made the Pro Bowl each of his next 10 years. "He was the best," said Cronin, a teammate of Schmidt in 1956 through 1959. Years ago, there was a story going around that they were going to make a movie called The Violent World of Sam Huff, and Huff was a fine middle linebacker, no question about it. And they asked Baltimore Colts Hall of Fame lineman Gino Marchetti, they said, "What do you think about making a movie called The Violent World of Sam Huff?" And he said, "Well, if they make a movie, they better get Joe Schmidt to play the part. You can't get a better compliment than that." Before Schmidt's emergence, most NFL teams, including the Lions, played 5-man defensive fronts. with an oversized nose guard in the middle of their line. Schmidt, who played fullback and guard early in his college career, moved to linebacker during his sophomore season at Pittsburgh, where his speed and athleticism allowed him to star as an off-the-ball run stopper. With the Lions, he played outside linebacker his first 2 seasons and moved to middle linebacker in 1955 when Coach Buddy Parker switched full-time to a 4-3 defense after nose guard Les Bingaman retired. With Schmidt as their leader, the Lions had some of the NFL's most fearsome defenses. Nearly everybody soon went to the 4-3 with the middle linebacker the key to the defense. Parker once told the Free Press, Schmidt's mobility took some of the load off the defensive backs on the pass defense. In fact, his style of play brought about the zone defense, revolutionizing defenses and modern defensive look of pro football. Born at the height of the Depression in 1932, Schmidt spent his early years in Pittsburgh. His father passed away when he was 12. One of his older brothers was killed in World War II, and he grew up idolizing another older brother, John, who played football at Carnegie Tech and coached a semi-pro team, the St. Clair Veterans. Schmidt played sandlot ball with that team as a teenager, and according to the Saturday Evening Post, even joined them as a 14-year-old for a game against a team of convicts inside the Western State Penitentiary. At Pitt, Schmidt suffered a slew of injuries, including 2 broken ribs, a broken wrist, and a separated shoulder, and a serious concussion. Those injuries caused him to drop in the 1953 draft, when the Lions made him their 5th player selected after guard Harley Sewell, halfback Gene Gedman, and tackles Charlie Ann and Ollie Spencer. Sewell, Gedman, and Ann also played on the Lions' 53 and 57 championship teams. Statistically, I would have to say that he was marginal. He was 6 feet tall and 220 pounds. The Lions owner, William Clay Ford, said when presenting Schmidt for his Hall of Fame enshrinement in 1973, Joe likes to say that at one point in his career he was 6'3", but he had tackled so many fullbacks that it drove his neck into his shoulders, and now he is 6 feet. There are, however, qualities that certainly scouts or everybody who is drafting a ball player cannot measure: desire, leadership, and courage. Nobody knew what quality Joe had of those elements, and Joe had tremendous qualities in those elements. The Lions team MVP in 1955, 1957, 58, and 1961, Schmidt helped organize what's now known as the NFL Players Association in the 1950s, and he was a leading force in getting players training camp pay and pensions. He retired after the 1965 season and spent a year as an assistant coach under Harry Gilmer, and took over as head coach a year later, where he compiled a 43-35-7 record in 7 seasons. I loved football, and I came up here 7th draft choice of a championship team. I really didn't think I had an opportunity to make the team, and luckily I made the team, Schmidt told the Free Press in 2017. I enjoyed it so much, the camaraderie, winning a championship, and an opportunity in business after I got out of sports. So everything I have actually came from playing football here in Detroit. If you stay here and work, people are very kind to you, here and in the industry. They love the sports in Detroit. They follow the Detroit Lions to a point where they were very great fans. And during that time, we were winning. And of course, that helps. But I can't say enough about my opportunities here in Detroit and the opportunities the Detroit Lions gave to me. And I'm forever grateful for that opportunity. Schmidt, who started his own automotive services business, selling rubber and plastic to the big three during his playing days, is survived by his wife Marilyn and 5 children. No public memorial is planned, with the family holding a private ceremony. So that is the story of Joe Schmidt here, and I really love covering these kind of stories, and there's a lot of information here, little tidbits, if you will, that people may have forgotten about over time, or even the player themselves. Even if they're in the Hall of Fame, it's easy for modern collectors now not to know the story of some of these players. Even if they're in the Hall of Fame, they can be easily overlooked. It happens. It's life, and so I really enjoyed reading these articles about Joe Schmidt here, and then some of the stories too, and just his overall contributions to the game itself and the Detroit Lions, who really haven't won a Super Bowl. I can't think of the last time they actually achieved that kind of success to get into one. So it's just, hey, listen, I'd love to see the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl, or any team that really hasn't monopolized the Super Bowl, like say my Patriots have over 20 years. Man, here in New England, we were really very lucky and very spoiled by the Patriots getting into the Super Bowl 9 times, and so I would like to see another team get in, like say maybe Cincinnati. That'd be nice, or even the Detroit Lions. They've come, I think, kind of close over the last couple of years, but the curse of Bobby Lane probably is real. I have no idea about that, but Joe Schmidt has a really great story that I wanted to share with you guys today, and he's got a lot of great cards, and most of them, if not all of them, are very affordable for the average collector, which I like, because one thing I think we're having problems with now is the affordability, or the average collector to gain entrance into vintage and pre-war baseball especially is getting really, really difficult for average collectors. So I'm not sure what exactly you can do about that. It was different when I was first getting into vintage too, back in the early 1990s to mid 1990s, and even after 2000, 2001, you could build a really nice vintage collection that wasn't going to break the bank. And now I just see it's really out of control, and I think other YouTubers and collectors and dealers kind of realize this now, and that's a separate issue, I think. But for the most part, vintage football is not going to set you back for the most part. I don't see a whole lot of vintage football cards that are going to break the bank, and especially Joe Schmidt's cards here and cards from the 1960s football. Bowman is a little bit different. 1948 through 1953 Bowman, they are going to be a little bit more expensive than tops, but for the most part, I think if you wanted to get into vintage, football might be your best opportunity at this point. But we'll see what happens in the future. Anyway, guys, I really wanted to talk about Joe Schmidt here and his amazing career and these stories. I love to pass down these stories to other generations too, who may be interested or not familiar with some of these players. And even if these players are in the Hall of Fame, uh, you know, their stories might not get trickle down to other generations. I had to learn about a lot of these players, and I really wanted to. And I think you have to have a want and a need to study some of the players of the NFL and even Cooperstown, and baseball. There has to be a a need, I guess, or a want. You have to want to learn about some of these players, and if you're going to buy and sell vintage, then you need to learn about some of the players who played prior to, say, 1990. I mean, I think I'm going to talk about this in a further video, in fact, but some of the players from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s, they're getting bypassed by Cooperstown because of the length of games that are now being played, and other players coming in and breaking their records, and a lot of these guys are not even in the record books today where they were before. And so I can understand, records are made to be broken, but at the same time too, a lot of these guys are being forgotten about, or not even taught, because of that fact that there are that the rules have changed over time, and extra games are added, leaving guys like Joe Schmidt in the dust. And I know he's in the Hall of Fame, but there are a lot more guys who should be in the Hall of Fame or not, and I'm going to talk about that in my next video. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it here. I'd love to hear what you have to say about Joe Schmidt, and if you have any favorite cards of his, let me know in the comment section below. And until the next time, I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye.